Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here. So today I have with me the Kurzweil SP7 Grand. Now there's two different configurations of the SP7. There's the SP7 Grand, which is what I have here, and the SP7. They're both 88 key. They're a little bit different. Let me go over the differences right now. The key action on the SP7 Grand, like this, is the Fritar TP110, which is a really cool action. It's the same thing you'll find in the Studio Logic Numa X Piano. Not the GT, but the Numa X Piano 88 key version. And on the SP7, you'll find the Medeli K6 action. And that's the same as the Kurzweil PC4, the SP6, which I really love, and the KM88 and the SP1. On the SP7 Grand, we've got a little bit more differences. Let me go over those right now. The color touch screen on the SP7 Grand is actually 7 inches, which is huge. And that's a 1024 by 600 pixels. On the SP7, you're looking at 4.3 inches, which is 480 by 282 pixels. Now, anytime you have a touchscreen, that's really great. I love that. The Casio PX560 and their 360, they all had a touchscreen. It was 4.3 inches, just like the SP7, and it really helped. I love touchscreens. The SP7 Grand, though, is 7 inches, probably the second biggest since Korg introduced an 8-inch touchscreen on their Korg Kronos. Kurzweil now has completely changed everything. They've gone into the future, so to speak, with their 7-inch touchscreen. And let me tell you, this is so good. It works just like you'd expect it to work on your cell phone. Very smooth. You're not going to sit there and press things a million times to get it to take. This really works. Now, as far as the casing on each one of those, the SP7 Grand, which is this one, is actually steel and aluminum. And it's available in black only. And when you get it, I mean, when I got this, it had this protective plastic, protective cellophane type of thing on it. And when you take this off, it is a really gorgeous high luster black. But at the same time, that high luster black is also a fingerprint attractor. So, yeah. It's really nice, but yeah, it does attract fingerprints, but I still love it just the way it is. And when you're dealing with the SP7, not the Grand, just the SP7, you can get it in your choice of black or white, whereas the SP7 Grand only comes in black. Now, there's also a difference in weight. The SP7 Grand weighs 36 pounds, respectable for everything that it does and the key action that it has and the metal casing that it has. But if you're going to go with the SP7, which is more plastic, you got 27.6 pounds. So you got basically 8.3 pounds of difference, which can make a difference if you're a gigging pianist. But I find with the 8.3 extra pounds with the SP7 Grand, it's kind of worth it for the larger 7-inch touchscreen and the metal casing around it. If you're a gigging pianist, you're going to really appreciate that metal. Now, the dimensions are a little bit different. The SP7 Grand is 4.7 inches high. It's 14.6 inches deep and 52 inches in length. Whereas you want to go with the SP7, not the Grand, just the SP7, you got 5.8 inches in height. It's a little bit higher. And you got 15.1 inches in depth, a little bit more depth, and 53.2 inches in length. Now, I'm not sure why all those dimensions on the SP7 are just a little bit bigger than the SP7 Grand, but for me, I still love the SP7 Grand. And the only reason I would consider going with the SP7, because it's, other than those what I just mentioned, it's identical in function, sounds, everything. The only reason I consider going with that is the less weight. 8.3 pounds is actually significant when you go from gig to gig to gig. But I think I'm going to put up with it so that I can have all those extra features. The metal chassis, the 7-inch touchscreen, the Fitar TP110 as opposed to the Medeli K6. But the Medeli K6 is actually really, really good too. So it's all a matter of preference when it comes to the key action. Kurzweil has always used their vast V.A.S.T synthesis technology or sound engine for their past products. They finally changed it to a much more modern approach, and that is the A.T.S.T. A.T.S.T stands for Authentic Timbre Synthesis Technology, and it provides a significant advance in realism through support of higher resolution audio, smooth velocity transitions, and 2 times oversampling filter. Now, I know what you're hearing here, that's just words, but with the A.T.S.T technology, let me go over something right now. With this, I can go through much more dynamic levels. So listen to this. And if I want to go to more, more dynamic approach, that's something that really most keyboards don't take advantage of. It's more for the stage or performance where it's mainly at the louder level. But with this, it really excels at the lower level. So you can hear the difference between the lower dynamics and the upper. Really cool, very expressive, and that's what I love about this board. As far as polyphony goes, 256 note polyphony, which you'll find on the upper end keyboards. This one's no different. 256 note polyphony is perfect. So you're not going to be losing notes, especially since you've got 16 zones here. 16 zones is so cool. Most instruments today will only do 4 zones. This is 16. And what I mean by zones is basically you can have 16 different instruments playing simultaneously. And with 256 note polyphony, you don't really have to worry about note stealing, note borrowing, or losing notes because of that. Now we've got 2 gigabytes of factory sounds and 512 multi-presets in 13 categories, which is right here. Now multi-presets is similar or identical to Nord's programs or Roland's scenes. So basically, you've got a lot of stuff that you can play here with 16 different zones all layered at once. So you can do layers of 16. How cool is that? When you first turn this on, this is in multi-mode. So when you pick something, here's a keyboard set. And if I go to Concert Grand, which is my favorite, you also have the rest of the instruments that are layered with this. And they choose instruments for that layer that actually make sense, so it really sounds good. And here's where you can control the instruments in that layer. You've got 8 right here, but you can go into and change that so that you can get to instruments 9 through 16 as well. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and go into Zone Edit. Okay, now in Zone Edit, you can see all the instruments that are on here. And well, here's the first 8. Whatever you want to see, like Zone 4, this is the instrument here. It's a Hammond organ. And you can actually control all the different parameters associated with that. If you haven't noticed by now, this is very much color oriented. The colors, the way they are, really nice, but you can set this up the way you want to. And it kind of reminds me of a DAW where you have a different color for each instrument, where you might have blue for a synthesizer, and you might have red for strings, and you might have green for something else. So you can assign these knobs and buttons and everything else colors so that you know that what's associated with that color is going to affect the color of whatever instrument that represents. Very, very, very cool. Now, the knobs up here, you've got in the first 4 right here, they control EQ. So you got EQ low, mid-low, mid-high, and EQ high. So listen to this. And if I control the EQ low, same thing with the mid-low and the mid-high. And the EQ high. Okay, and again, kind of like Nord, where everything is a knob or a button, so you don't have to go through menus, they put the most common used functions on their knobs, buttons, all that stuff. So EQ is definitely something that I'm going to be using all the time. So you just saw that I have available to me EQ control in 4 different bands. Now, also, we got delay time, delay level, reverb time, and reverb level. Okay, that might be a little bit over-exaggerated, but definitely proves my point here. What I would probably use is the reverb level. Okay, now these are labeled with what I just said: EQ low, EQ mid-low, EQ mid-high, and high. And on the next 4 knobs down here, we got delay time, delay level, reverb time, and reverb level. But these are programmable. So they're labeled what I just showed you, and they're also labeled P1, P2, P3, P4, all the way up to P8. P being potentiometer, because that's what this is. And the same thing with the buttons. The buttons can turn on and off the different zones for your layer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. And they can also be programmed as B1. You see the labels here, B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for button 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8, actually up to 16. And you can program that to do whatever you want. So there's a lot of versatility here, just right here. Not to mention, the colors can be assigned to whatever you want to associate these with. Very, very cool. And even the outputs. So we've got a monitor output left and right, which you've got on the back, and you've got a main output left and right, which you also have on the back. You can control 2 sets of monitors or whatever. And right now I set this up for main. So one of these you might want to feed to front of house. So if you've got a sound guy up there during your gig, you'll feed him that. And as far as for you, you'll set up your own stage monitors or whatever, and that's right there. And like any keyboard, transpose is very important. And rather than going through menu driving, and I've seen keyboards where you've got to go through 3 different layers of menus just to get to transpose, you don't have to do that here. It's right up here in the front. So going up a half note at a time or going down a half note at a time. You want to get back to normal, press both at the same time. So let's go back to this. We've got this sound button depressed right now. So we've got the different sounds here. There's 4 different main categories here. You got favorites, sounds, audio, and global. So right now I'm in sound. So basically, I've got the concert grand picked. And when you pick sounds like that, you're getting all the layers that they predetermined for you, and they did a really good job predetermining that. But if you don't want to do that, you can either turn all these off and just leave the concert grand. And add layers as you prefer. And that's what this keyboard is all about. You are always in these modes where you've got the equivalent of Roland's scenes or Korg's multis, that kind of stuff. So that is really cool. But what if I don't want that? What if I just want a single sound at a time? I don't need all the others, and I don't want to have to basically turn everything off just so I can hear my single sound in the main category. Well, you go into global mode right here. See this thing called controller? You basically turn that off. You go back to your sounds, and now you got one sound at a time. So here's a keyboard set. And we'll go into the concert grand, which is my favorite. And once again, the dynamics going from low. love that because I can go from the lowest lows to the highest highs in terms of volume or dynamics. It's something that you can't really achieve very well on other keyboards. This one does it perfectly, and that's part of their new A.T.S.T or Authentic Timbre Synthesis technology. I love it. Now, as far as actual sounds, when you go back to the multi-timbre presets where you've got all 16 going at the same time or up to 16, they've got 512 multi-presets in 13 categories, like I mentioned earlier. These are the categories here: piano, electric piano, clav, organ, string, pad, ensemble, brass, winds, synth, guitar / bass, drums / percussion, and miscellaneous. They also have user because you can put your own in there. And the other two are basically enter and keypad. Basically, if you're using this as a keypad, every sound or everything has a basic number to it. So you can basically use this as a keypad, and you can see the numbers like a keypad over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. And you can use it as a keypad to enter the number you want and then press the enter key. So how cool is that? Instead of going and fishing through everything, you can just get directly to the sound that you want. So far, that's the sound category, and it's been really cool. If you go to the audio category, that is so cool because you've basically got an audio interface here. And basically 2 in and 2 out. You've got audio input 1, audio input 2, and these really cool switches over here so that you can use it as high Z, meaning you can hook up a guitar to it. You actually have phantom power, so if you have a really good mic that requires phantom power, like a Neumann mic, that's where this comes in handy. And you have input 2, which also can be a mic or high Z for guitar. Now, since you have 2 inputs, 1 and 2, you've got controls here for input 1 gain and input 2 gain, meaning you can control the amount of signal coming in. And actually, here's a mic that's hooked up to it right now. So basically, I'm going to go into audio mode, which I'm already at. I'm going to turn the mic on, of course. I'm going to start talking, and you can hear me here. And we got stereo, mono, mute, and we got loopback, and all kinds of other stuff. Recording level, all that kind of stuff. So when you go to input 1, you can control a lot of things for that particular mic. There's input 2 for the next mic, unless you're using it for a guitar or something. So basically, you've got dynamics, and you can turn that on, and you can hear the difference right away. And basically, this is a compressor here. We've got gain control, and basically when I go down, I'm going to the left. When I'm going up, I'm going to the right. All right, we're going to leave it right about here. Then there's the threshold. And again, you should know about compression to know what each one of these functions does. And there's the ratio and all that, and the attack and the release. So that's part of like your audio envelope. And that's just compressor. We're not done yet. Let's go to the next one, which is distortion. And we can have, well, input brightness. We can have drive, how much drive you want. Output brightness, output level, and so on and so forth. But basically, besides that, you get distortion, all that kind of stuff. Let's go to EQ, because we can use the EQ on your mic as well. And the next one is mod and wah. Right now, it's nothing. modulation. And again, that applies to your voice since we're using microphones. So you can actually change that right on the fly to be exactly like you want. Now this is triangle, and I can set that up for a sine wave, which is going to be a little bit different, as you can hear right now. Okay, and we have an async sine wave as well, and we can change all kinds of parameters with that here. And the same thing with chorus. We can change that too, the rate and the depth. So it's really cool stuff. That's triangle. We can go into sine and change it accordingly from there as well. Test 1, 2, 3. Then there's the delay and tremolo. You can choose the effects type from there. So this is off. Let's go ahead with delay. You can hear it right away. Delay. This is the feedback. All right, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. We'll keep it somewhere around here. And pre. High damper. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1. And the level. Test 1, 2, 3. This is mono. I can change it to stereo. And the time, I can adjust that 1/8, 1/16, and so on. Very cool stuff. Then there's mix. So how do you want it to sound in your mix? So there is so much going on here, and it doesn't even end there. And that's just input 1. And we can do input 2. If you got a second mic, you want to change that stuff too. It doesn't even end there. There's more effects than just that. You have harmonics. It can actually do 4-part harmonies with you. How cool is that? So, and again, this is actually an audio interface. So when you have this board, you don't need to have another audio interface to use this so that you can sing along with it or anything else like that. Very, very, very cool. So you get the idea of that, but really with the harmonics and pitch correction, this is really, really wonderful for this type of keyboard. So we went through the sound mode and the audio modes. Let's go to global, and this is where you can change a lot of stuff. Now, if you watch my previous videos, I am really big on having the key touch available to me that I can change right away. Here, you just press global and you're right there. Velocity map, right there. And it's set for hard 1 right now. We got normal. Normal 2. Normal 1. So with less key press effort, it's going to sound louder. And I'm barely touching the keys. And we go to the light 3. Same thing here. So I don't like the lights. Of course, there's a fixed rate as well. No matter how light you're pressing the key or how hard, it's going to sound the same volume. I don't like that. But if you're going to be using organ, that's the way organ works. So that's what you might want to pick if you're doing organ parts with your band. Okay? So for me, here's hard 3. Hard 1 is perfect for me. Very, very expressive for me. And of course, this isn't the only thing. You're in global mode. This affects the entire keyboard. So basically, you've just watched with the velocity map. There's tempo mode. There's MIDI transmit and MIDI receive. So you can set it up for multi or single. In other words, if you have a single MIDI channel coming in, say MIDI channel, whatever it is, it's going to pick that up. Multi, it's going to pick up no matter what MIDI channel is coming in. Okay, that's all global 1. Global 2, this is cool. The LCD brightness. Now look at the LCDs here. See how I can make that dimmer or brighter. And the LED brightness. Same kind of thing. Now when you go to global control, and again, this is what I told you about these keys, these knobs right here. Okay. P1 or delay time, P2 or delay level, P3 or reverb time, P3 or reverb level, and so on down here. When you're using it as a P key, you can program it to be whatever you want. Otherwise, you're using it as it's set up to be their default levels: EQ, low, low gain, mid, high gain, and high gain. And then when you go to LED colors, this is really cool because you can change the colors of everything right here using this color screen right here. LED 1s and LED 2s. 2s are this bank of buttons right here. 1s are everything that you see over here. And what's really cool is they've got this color wheel here, so you're not limited to just preset colors. They've got colors here. You can just use the wheel to change whatever color you want and then fine tune it over here. Then they got demo songs, and you can hear that right here. And a cool one, a really cool one, is Demo Song 3, because it's the setup so you can play along with it. And then if you go to the info category, this is really cool. I haven't found this yet on another keyboard. If you've got your smartphone with you, you can go ahead and look at the QR codes for here, and you've got the quick guide, and you've actually got the musician's guide, which is the owner's manual. So when you're rehearsing with your band and everything, you don't know what you want to do. You do know what you want to do. You just don't know how to do it. You just go ahead and scan this with your QR code reader, and now you've got the owner's manual in front of you, and you can look up whatever it is you're trying to do and do it. That is so cool. I love that. You don't really see that about other boards with this. And the 4 main buttons here is favorite. And you can have 64 favorites, and basically when you're at a gig, you want to set up what programs or scenes or individual sounds you want. This is where you get to do that. Right now, this is set for the first one, keyboard set. Here's a concert grand. Here's a cello and harpsichord. Analog strings 1. Anyway, this is perfect if you're a gigging musician in a band. This is perfect to set up whatever sounds you want so that you all set. You've got this right available to you. So the band leader says, we're going to do this song next. You just go ahead and pick right from here. How cool is that? You don't have to go through menus and sub-menus to find the sound you're looking for and hold the band up. This is really cool. All right, so let's go back into the sound category. And again, like I said, since I've got it where I'm just choosing individual sounds, and that's in the synth category. And here's where I can turn on individual. Okay, now let's go back to the piano category. And again, let me remind you, when you get this, it's set up for multi. So whatever you pick, you're going to get all these different multis. And I basically went into global mode and I turned controller to off. That way I can get to individual sounds. But if I turn controller back to on, and you can see right away, let's go back into sound mode, where you can and that's where you can turn on individual sounds and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to see the sounds that are in there for each one of the zones, the buttons here, we'll go here and we're going to go into zone edit, and you can see zone 1 all the way up to zone 16. How cool is that? So for each one, if I want to know what's going on in zone 2, so if I go into zone 2, I can see I've got a vintage EP in there, and I can adjust all these different parameters here. I can even choose if I want to send it local or MIDI together, or just local or just MIDI. And this is for each one of those sounds. Very, very, very cool. The effects bus, and we went through this already, but I can set that up for each one of these. And that is so cool. No, we're not going to change the settings. The other thing that I really love about this is you take most keyboards and you're going to see that there's a modulation wheel and a pitch wheel, and it's all the way over here to the left. Sometimes it's even to the left of the keys. And basically when you're playing, it takes time to get to that left part, whereas here it's right up here. And since it is a joystick, it's very easy to use. So that's a pitch right here. And the modulation is up and down. And you can use a combination of everything. All right, that's so cool. Whereas if you tried to do the same thing, you've got two wheels that you got to deal with. So you're either using two fingers to control the two wheels to do exactly what I'm doing here, or maybe you need two hands to do it, and then you don't have any hands to play what's going on. So that is really cool. And again, like I mentioned with the zones, everything's got its own settings and everything, and you can have individual envelope settings for each of the zones as well. Very, very, very cool. And this is one of the few, I don't think I've ever seen a keyboard that actually has an SD card slot. So you can actually use an SD card with that. How cool is that? I've not seen another keyboard that does that. Now you also have arpeggiation, and the arpeggiators, you can use up to 8 of them simultaneously. Very, very cool. And it's got a pretty extensive arpeggiator section. I love that. In addition to sampling, like I mentioned with the pianos and all that stuff, you also have modeled portions of that. You've got string and resonance modeling. So that's really cool too. Now there's 21 different effects algorithms like reverb and flange and chorus and compression and BPM synced delay and rotary speaker, various distortion types, tremolo, wah-wah, and EQ. Very cool stuff right here. And again, I can't mention how important the 16 different zones are. Very, very cool. And as far as the arpeggiator, I already mentioned you can have 8 arpeggiators at once, but also you have a note arpeggiator and a step sequencer as well. And getting back to the mics, you can auto-stabilize the pitch of mic input. And like I mentioned before, I think I mentioned that before, vocal processing can generate up to 4-part harmonies with your voice. How cool is that? As well as generate vocoder-like effects. So, all together, you've got 301 factory programs. You got 512 factory multis. You've got 128 user multis and 16 zones, 64 favorites, and when it comes to MIDI, it's got general MIDI 2 built in. All right, so I've talked a lot about what the features are. Let me talk about the back panel, because that's pretty extensive too. They've covered a lot. And what's nice about that is it's all labeled right here in white up front, so I don't have to go and look and see where the connections are. It's all aligned for where it's marked here on the keyboard. Very, very cool. I love when keyboard manufacturers do that. Makes my job much easier of hooking this up at a gig. So, looking at it from the back, you've got audio input 1 and 2, and these are combo jacks. You can have XLR or 1/4 inch. Very cool. And a lot of other keyboards that accept mic input only use 1/4 inch, which I never understood. But since they're using XLR, that enables them to also have the phantom power switch here as well. Okay, next you've got a headphone jack, standard, self-explanatory. Monitor output left and right, okay? That would probably go to, it can go to whatever you want to use it for. I'd send it to front of house. And then you've got the left and right main outputs, which I'm using right now, so that what you hear me playing, it's coming through those outputs. And then you've got pedal inputs. You've got CC, or continuous controller, for volume pedal, also known as expression. Then you've got the switch 1, which is a sustain pedal. And I'm not sure why they're calling it a switch, because if you use the right pedal, it's also a half damper. Okay? And that is really cool. Then there's switch 2. You can program this for whatever you want to use that for. Then, like I said, the SD card and USB, so you can hook this up to your computer. It's a USB out over here. Hook that up to a USB-B to get to your computer. Then there's the 5-pin DIN legacy MIDI jacks for MIDI in and MIDI out. How cool is that? Most keyboards don't even do that anymore today. Then you got the DC input, and of course, the power switch. So the other thing I want to talk about is just how much you can do with this as far as tailoring your sound. So you press this little knob here, and you're in the control category. These are the knobs right here. And again, like I said, delay time, delay level, reverb time, etc. You can also program these knobs to be whatever you want. P1, P2, P3, P4. Then we go into the buttons. And these are basically the same as these. You can activate the different zones. So I press it here, or whether I press it here, it's the same thing. Okay. Then there's the joystick, and you can program that here as well. You got pitch bend, plus pitch bend, minus mod wheel. Then there's the pedals, and you can control what pedal controls what. You got 3 pedal inputs and 3 controls here for whatever you want those pedals to be. Right now, switch 1 is for sustain. And again, it's not just a switch, it's a continuous controller. So you have actually the half damper capability. But it doesn't have to be sustain. It can be whatever you want it to be. So you can go into edit, and then you can change any of these. So the controller, CC, continuous controller, destination is expression, but it doesn't have to be. It can be any of these: aux effects, aux EQ, zone effects, audio effects, vocal processor, or any other thing that you want it to be. So you've got a lot of control here. Then there's the channel mixer, of course. You've got all these different zones. You can control the volume of each one. Of each one. Very, very, very cool. And you can see it zone 1 through zone 8. And again, there's 16 zones, so you press here, and you can get to zones 9 through 16. Okay? Then there's effects. So for each one of these, you can activate the effects for each one as well. Then this is one of the coolest things right here, key range. So you can see the keyboard right there, all right? So for each one, zone 1, I want to see the whole keyboard. But let's say for zone 5, whatever instrument that is, I only want that part of the keyboard, okay? And that's going to be right here. And you can see that part right here. And this is how you adjust everything as far as splits and layers. So you can basically split stuff. You want something here and something here and something here. And not only that, you want something here where you've got a layer of 2 or 3, and something here, you've got a layer of 2 or 3 more, and so on. As far as splits, you basically set it up where you got keyboard up here and bass down here. Very cool. It is so cool to set up splits and layers right here very, very easily, unlike other keyboards. And it's available for all 16. Then there's the zone edit. You saw all the different instruments that we can put into the zones, but you can change a lot of stuff right here. That's common, zone 1, and you can change whatever the zone program is. You can activate it, turn it off. You've got the transpose for that zone. How cool is that? So when you do transpose globally, it affects the whole keyboard, but here it only affects whatever tone you have selected. Very, very cool. So you can have transpose for any one of your 16 zones. Then there is the effects bus and the arpeggiator and all that other stuff. Very cool. The effects bus, you can choose what effects type you want. This is the compressor right here. Here we go, distortion, overdrive, bit crusher, and so on. And since you have 4 different types of effects, that's effects A, you got effects B, C, and D as well. And then there's the arpeggiators. There are 8 different ones that you can use actually simultaneously. And you can set up all kinds of different stuff for all of those. And then there's the aux effects. So we've got aux effects for all that other kind of stuff. You can set the time here. You can set the pre-low pass filter, the high damp, the feedback, the chorus send, reverb send, level. Then we can go to chorus and change all of that stuff available to us. Same thing with reverb, very extensive, and the equalizer. So a very cool instrument. So let's go through a little bit of the sounds, not much. So I'm going to go through individual sounds right now, like the piano, and it comes up with the keyboard list set. Oh, let's go and change that. I just want individual sounds. Okay. And if I go into the concert grand, which is my favorite, a lot of pianos here, which I really love. Studio grand. Here's a Lucerne acoustic piano. And an ambient piano. As a pianist, I'm a professional pianist, I really appreciate all the different selections of different pianos they have here. And again, the Concert Grand being my favorite, it's just probably the one that I'll use the most when I'm doing solo piano gigs. Here's a Rainy Blue. Piano and pad 1. And notice that since I selected that, even though I went to the global menu and turned controller off, we have both different tones selected right here. So we got the piano and we got the pad together. Let's do another one, piano and pad 2. And they have another one, piano and pad 3. Then there's a trio split, and you can see there's 3 different instruments or zones hooked up here. And again, if you want to see what those instruments are that are in those 3 zones, you hit this little knob thing here. We'll go into zone edit, and we'll see for zone 1, we got an acoustic right here, and zone 2, acoustic bass, zone 3, a ride cymbal. So, and you can change any of these right here on the fly. So let's go back. We're not going to change anything here. Now we got a piano and bass split. Okay, very cool. Here's a piano synth bass split. That's a synth bass. Cool. Here's a recital piano. player's room. There is piano in string 1. I like that. So let's find out what that string 1 is. We'll go back into Zone Edit. The piano is an acoustic grand, and Zone 5, just basic strings. Very cool. All right. So anyway, you get an idea about that. That's just, singular stuff. Let's go back to global and change it so that we have basically combis or programs or multis, whatever you want to call it. All right. And then we'll go back to sounds. So for piano, the first thing that comes up, piano keyboard list set. And again, I like concert grand, so let's see what the other sounds are that they came up with to go along with concert grands to create this multi. And again, we can see what the dynamics are, and that's part of the A.T.S.T sound engine that they have, that authentic timbre synthesis technology. It is so cool because now you can go from the lowest volumes to the highest volumes, and it sounds so good. All right, let's pick another category like E-piano. They're using a vintage EP here. Here's a clav. And again, it's not just a clav. I'm using all these other sounds that they came up with for this multi-category. Let's see what they came up with harpsichord. Let's go into organ. Let's see what they came up with for this. Organ mix. Percussion. Strings. Dynamic. So the slow string ensemble. 21 strings. All right, let's go into pads. Here's a Dream Dolce. It's a Magic Flower. Pad lead split 1. Let's go into Ensemble. I love it. Vivaldi Orchestra, that's actually probably a better one. I don't know if that's a better one, but I do like it. It's different. The Brassy Pitsy. Fellowship. Gothic Climax. And you can see there's a lot of stuff here. Let's try brass. Winds. It's another one that can benefit with the extreme low volume and high volume, or the dynamics. Very cool. Here's a saxophone ensemble. Winds Trio. Let's go into the synth category. Here's a retro dance. A lot of different stuff here. It's a steel bottle. Drums and percussion. miscellaneous. Oh God, you can do a lot with that. And then there's the user category and so on and so forth. But basically, I have barely touched the surface with this, especially when it comes to the sound demos. There is so much here, but basically, I wanted to get across to you what it's like to actually use this instrument as a keyboard player. And there is so much to this. And the fact that it's a 7-inch touchscreen. I mean, Kurzweil, they've constantly been trying to improve their instruments, but this is the first time they've actually made a monumental, major improvement, especially having an audio interface here with 4-part harmony and all that other stuff. You really can't beat this board. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Piano Man Chuck, peace out. Thanks for watching.